Hey guys, Dr. Ben here, along with Dr. Jake, FA Well Centers. We're going to talk today about monkeypox. This is something that you're starting to see it in the news. You know, it'll be on CNN at night, or Fox will have it on their website. People are starting to talk about it. I saw President Biden, he just bought, $100 million worth of monkeypox vaccines.
119, 180 to come.
Yeah, and so $300 million worth of monkeypox vaccines. And we're going to get into it. What is monkeypox? You know, a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, is this some new thing? Do we need to lose sleep over it? Do we need to lock down? You see Belgium, 21-day quarantine. If somebody gets
they're also the one that's producing the vaccine as well.
Yeah, Belgium is. So coincidence, maybe not. Do you need to get a vaccine? Do you need to lose sleep? Hey, Paula, good to see you. Pop down below where you guys are watching from. We'd love to see it all over the country, all over the world. I know we've got Europeans on here. I know we've got people in South Africa, people in Australia, New Zealand. Let us know what you're seeing in that area. But we're going to get into it, what it is, what you need to be doing, and do you actually need to be concerned about this? Hey, Natalie and Patricia, good to see you guys. Okay, so Dr. Jake, monkeypox, physiologically and just kind of from the cellular side, what is monkeypox and compared to other chickenpox and smallpox and things like that?
So it's part of a different family. So just like bacteria, you have like strep species, but or strep genus, and then there's tons of different strep species, some good, beneficial for us, some bad, and they cause issues. Well, similarly, we classify viruses in different groups or different families. So the monkeypox is part of a family called the orthopox virus family. Now, if you look up orthopox virus family, you will see the number one on the top of the list that everyone's heard about is smallpox. Okay, and that's why this thing isn't getting any attention at all. However, if you also look at some of the other viruses on the list that are technically classified under this orthopox family, there is camelpox and horsepox and turkeypox and skunkpox, and you'll notice a theme that most of them are from an animal origin.
So they're jumping from an animal to the human. Kind of like how they said with COVID, that they said it came from bat poop soup or whatever they called it, when we know that it really evolved in the lab like it did. But, this probably actually did come.
It has a high chance. I'm not being too specific with it. However, we know that, and think back, how did they cure smallpox? Mr. Jenner saw that his cows were having an issue and then realized, hey, I wonder if I can create a sample from the cow, create an attenuated issue, and then create a vaccine to basically give people to kind of fight smallpox before they even get smallpox. So he used the cowpox, essentially strain that our bodies could fight really easily or better to help us create an immunity for it. So that's just a good thing to kind of understand, as we do think it's from an animal origin. Most of the ones in the orthopox family are.
And we're talking that it's crossing not from a very nice way. We're talking
it's from a unique practices is what we think.
Bestiality basically is where they're seeing that this is coming across.
But it can also be from blood. It can also be things like that. But one of the articles, I don't know if Brittany's posted it yet. The CDC has actually done quite a bit of work on this. They wanted to get ahead of it because the orthopox, if they do cross into the human population, have the potential to kind of be taken seriously. So it's good they're getting ahead of it. But we know of 4 confirmed cases in the U.S. Most of them are in Europe and Africa. Africa is actually where it's most known. But there are, like we said, Belgium is known for it as well. They're the ones actually producing the vaccine. However, the thing, even the article stressed that this is not a COVID. I know people are on really high alert because people have never studied the immune system before. In the last 2 years, you've got a very unique education on how the immune system works with not a lot of physiologic or biochemistry background. So this is not another COVID. I quote that out of the article. This is not something we're going to be like, this is going to spread to millions.
Yeah. And John and Kelly, you guys, I think you're on the right page there. yeah, that you're saying don't give this any press. Well, you know what? From a health perspective, people hear things and they're worried and they don't have the education and all these things. So, you know, is this something, you know, to lose sleep about? Absolutely not. Is there a chance that, you know, some people die around the world from monkeypox?
Sure.
You know, sure. That's remember, it's the state of the host that is really what this is all about. And if you have a very strong host, if your host is not friendly to COVID, not friendly to monkeypox, not friendly to strep throat, any of these things, you're not going to either have a hard time with it, or even if you do get it, you're just going to be like, okay, I'm good, and move on, or not even have any symptoms. Your body's going to be able to deal with that. So, you know, it really comes down to where your body is at. And same thing we've been talking about for years here is, you know, what are some things that people can do just to support that immune system day in and day out? I always say you can't out supplement a weakened immune system. So sure, zinc, D, C, you know, you got your quercetin, all these things, but just what are some things that we can do day in and day out to make our immune system as unfriendly of a place for germs?
Yeah, I would start with, let's talk about, you know, I know recently you've talked a little bit about sleep. So here's how I ask my patients whether or not they're getting a good sleep. They're like, oh, I fall asleep just fine. It's like, okay, that's fine, but I want the two more specific questions about sleep, which is, how many times do you wake up, and how long does it take to get you out of back to sleep after you do wake up? And number two, how rested do you feel in the morning? And when I say rested, here's my qualification for rested. Since your eyes open to the time you get out, within a half an hour of waking up, are you hungry? Do you poop? And are you ready to go? Are you ready to think of it like a little kid? I'm up, I gotta poop, mom, I'm hungry. There we go, that kid is healthy. His immune system's ready to take on all this new stuff that his body's about to encounter. So sleep is huge. If that does not happen for you, or if you're like, actually, the first question was a positive, I can't fall asleep well, my mind races, go ahead and reach out, because there's a lot. Your sleep is huge when we're talking about what can you do every day, and there's simple ways to reset your sleep
A
patterns.
common one is, you know, whether you get 6 hours or 12 hours of sleep.
Oh yeah.
Are you still tired? And people say that all the time. Like, it doesn't matter whether you know, on the weekend I can sleep till 9 in the morning, or, you know, and during the week I have to get up at 5. I'm still just as tired. It does not matter. Hey, Randy, good to see you out there. It does not matter how much sleep I get. That is a really good sign that it's not even, you know, that you're waking up in the middle of the night. Some people will sleep through like 10 hours straight through, but still be tired. And that's when we look at a brain map, you can actually tell somebody's brainwave activity. If you remember driving a stick shift and you're still in first gear, but you're going 30 miles an hour because you forget you're eating a sandwich and you forget to shift, that motor and that RPMs is going to be really, really high. You're still in first gear, but you're revved up really, really high there. So you've got to get that quality sleep. So some of the things I like to talk to patients about, you know, dimming the lights, you know, we've got all these bright lights here. You definitely wouldn't want this because your brain's thinking, hey, it must be daytime. Let's go. What are some other things you talk to patients about?
So a big one is eating in the morning. A lot of people, I know intermittent fasting is massive right now, but most people, if you are not aware of what's going on physiologically or biochemically in your body, and you're probably doing intermittent fasting wrong. Not only that, one of the biggest mistakes that people make is they like, hey, I eat from noon to 8 o'clock. That's like my 6 or 8 hour window that I eat. Well, the problem is that's actually the wrong window. If you want to eat the proper way to do intermittent fasting, if you want to sustain good sleep patterns, the cortisol awakening response, you want to help with blood sugar metabolism, you need to actually eat up to about 40% of your total calorie intake by breakfast. And some people are like, I can't eat breakfast, that makes me sick. And that's one thing I'm always glad to hear, because that means you're a cortisol flatliner, you're having blood sugar, like you're having an endocrine issue. Your adrenals are probably, if they're not already shot, they will be soon. So that's another one. I go through patients I talk about with patients all the time.
And Dr. Brenninger, he wrote into Alzheimer's, and what he was saying as well is that the brain, it's doing a lot of repair. The body repairs the brain at nighttime, and if you eat right before bed, if you eat in that, and we're not talking a slice of turkey breast to keep your blood sugar. We're talking 300, 400, 500 calories. You're actually going to impair your brain's ability to repair. And actually, because here's the deal, you're breaking down every day. You're breaking down muscle, you're breaking down bones, brain, all these skin, all these different things, and it needs to repair. But if you're eating late at night, you're not going to repair your brain. You're going to have a higher chance of neurodegeneration. And it's not that it's just degenerating, it's that it's not rebuilding and repairing in there as well. So definitely, if you're intermittent fasting, think about intermittent fasting only till like 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and then calling it good the rest of the way. And that can actually be more beneficial for your health than otherwise. What do you think about, we were talking about the lights. What do you tell patients about lights, color of lights, things like that?
So yeah, I mean, any of the reds and yellows and things like that, like the color, just think of it, color of a campfire. I mean, there are very few people that, if you throw out the smell and things like that, some people don't like mosquitoes, but just the campfire itself, there are very few things that are more calming than watching a campfire, and that's actually because of those wavelengths and stuff like
those
that.
Little wiggles, yeah.
And it's also the color. It's that very calming, inducing those type of oranges, reds, and yellows. Those little bit on the wavelength spectrum. So that's what I tell people. Maybe a candle as you're kind of just doing some stretching, or you're doing a breathing exercise. I personally do a breathing exercise as soon as I finish my little, I foam roll, I brush my teeth, I do a little bit of a yoga thing that takes like 2 minutes. Then I sit on the edge of my bed and I do a breathing exercise. Head hits the pillow, I'm out. And that routine, put a little candle there or something right there to just kind of help set those good color wavelength patterns. You want to stay away from fluorescents and really bright LEDs. And it's not that those are just dangerous for your health. You're just trying to set a pattern that's better to induce you.
So as we look outside right here, there's blue sky and blue light. And so just if you look at the natural patterns and rhythms of the day, if you're looking at blue sky, blue light, your brain says, oh, it's daytime, let's go. But we've evolved over the years of being around campfires, being around candles, lanterns, fireplaces, things like that. I love the Little House on the Prairie books. I read those to all of our boys. And almost every chapter, Laura falls asleep to Pa playing the fiddle, but it's usually in the winter that they talk about these, because it's 5 o'clock, 4:30 up in South Dakota, and it's negative 30 outside, and they don't have tons of firewood and lamp oil and all these things. So as soon as it gets dark, maybe you got 20-30 minutes of sitting around the fire until it goes out, and then everybody falls asleep. But it's very, very calming to be looking at that. But if you're looking at your screen, if you're looking at your phone like we are, your iPad, your computer, your TV, any of those things, boop, hey, blue light, you've all heard that term, blue light is going to be stimulating to the brain. So we've got to get that sleep wave in a better state.
And Natalie, she brought up a great point. I mean, the Himalayan salt lamp, that's a fantastic one. For just setting that mood, it really is a great kind of frequency.
Yeah, Natasha, I used to sleep poorly, but after working with you guys, I sleep great. However, I hate mornings now. It takes me almost 2 hours to get the grogginess away. What might be going on? You want to talk about like the jump starts and some of those things?
So yeah, and you'll have to remind us that if you went through what we call the morning cortisol awakening response, it's how to actually get that response going. Because this really matters on whether or not, where I start, the easiest place to start is analyzing whether or not you're a cortisol flatliner. Because the way cortisol is supposed to work, naturally.
And cortisol is that adrenal hormone,
yep.
That jump start, get you going. Hey, there's a mountain lion going to chase you, or you're speeding down the highway and you see a police officer and your heart rate goes and all that. You get cortisol kicking out.
Exactly. So it is beneficial for us, but having it all day all long to help us balance blood sugar, that's where cortisol is a bad thing. But cortisol normally, you start off pretty low between 4, 5, 6, 7 milligrams per deciliter. Then within a half an hour of waking up, you're supposed to produce as much as 5 to 6 times that resting amount. You're supposed to have this huge bump. What that does is that puts a bunch of glucose into the bloodstream. Excuse me. It also stimulates your body in that stress response to wake you up, get you going, cause you to be hungry. And it also gets the whole system just churning and ready to move, ready to start the day. Then it drops, man, excuse me. Then it drops back down about 60% from that high point, and then it's slowly supposed to go down throughout the rest of the day till you hit about 15 hours. Once you hit about 15 hours of wake, it drops. When it drops, that signals your brain to actually stop signaling down to the body and start signaling back to the pineal gland to start producing melatonin and run your sleep cycles. So if you're like, I cannot get going in the morning, there is a good chance we're not getting that morning CAR, the morning cortisol awakening response. There are a few supplements and herbs that can help support that. There are a few things you can just behaviorally do, like wake up, do some jumping jacks, do some push-ups.
And we're talking like right away.
Yeah.
We're not saying, oh, go and drink your coffee, read the newspaper, and do it 40 minutes down the road. We're talking, jump out of bed and be like, you know what? This really stinks. I do not want to do this. I'm like Natasha here. I've got grogginess. My brain's not going. But get this. If you go, okay, I'm going to do these jumping jacks. What's your brain going to do? It's going to go,
I have to turn on.
Something's coming. We posted last week about research showing that if you go out and get 20 to 30 minutes of sunlight early in the morning as well, that's going to increase your metabolism. You're actually going to burn more calories by getting early sun because the body's like, well, I'm going to have to do something today.
Yep.
I don't know, maybe I'm going to have to dig some ditches or, pull some weeds or, go chase a deer down and shoot it or whatever. I better be ready and have my metabolic state right.
And one of the other things that's really important to understand is when that brain turns back on from its reparative states at night, the brain has a checklist. And the brain works on the law of averages. It says, okay, how much energy did I use yesterday and last week and last month and this last year? Okay, well, that's how much energy I need today. That's how many calories I need to consume, all this other stuff. So what it says is, okay, I'm going to wake up and I need a meal right out of the gate. And if you all of a sudden go the first 2-3 hours of your day, your brain starts saying, okay, I'm a third of the way through my day and I have 10% of my total calorie need. What I'm going to start doing, I was going to start turning on my endocrine system to help me function. I'm now calorie deficient. I'm now worried how I'm going to get it all in. But if you wake up within half an hour, you've got a large percentage of your total energy and caloric intake for the day. Your brain's like, sweet, I'm going to take care of what I need to. And I've got some extra to just give this person energy through lunch and through that mid-afternoon slump. Because that mid-afternoon slump quite literally can be correlated directly to breakfast time.
So again, thanks everybody for jumping on. We're talking about monkeypox, and we'll summarize for those of you that have been jumping on. It's basically, yes, it can jump from animals to humans. There's only a few cases around, even around the world. The CDC rightfully looked into it, but then the news media jumps on it. And remember, what's the job of the news media? It is to make more money for their shareholders. And so how does that happen? By getting more viewers and getting more people entrenched. Oh my gosh, what's going on? And do we need to be afraid and all those things? Well, here's the deal. What we're seeing is not even this deadly disease. So monkeypox in and of itself is not going to be like, oh my gosh, everybody is dying from it. But again, it's in immunocompromised people. There are some indications it's not an STD, but
it presents as one, and that's the way it's actually transferred the most is yes, it can be respiratory droplets. That's different between an aerosol.
They're big droplets.
And droplets can only go certain, so they even say, even if it's droplet presentation, it has to be a pretty decent dose.
Like if I was going to sneeze in your face.
Several times, and I inhale every sneeze, that's kind of a thing. Or there has to be, and what the article says very clearly, it's usually intimate, sustained contact.
If you know what we're talking about. So, you know, if you know who your partner is, and you know there's no other intimate contact there, you're probably going to be okay.
If you're super scared, bring your own pillow and sheets to a hotel room.
Sure. And
I mean, that's if you're just ultra scared and you're going to want to really protect, and sometimes that's not a bad idea, depending on the hotel you're staying at.
Yeah, we do that a lot of times anyways, whether that's the you know, the fabric softeners or whatever.
Oh yeah, the allergens and irritants.
All those bed bugs and all those things. So monkeypox, you know, it really, don't lose any sleep about it. It's not, it's just the way it's transmitted, everything. It's not going to be this big be all and end all, although President Biden is buying $300 million worth of the vaccines for it. You know, really at this point, not something that we need to lose sleep about. So we're also talking about some other things that you can do to really support and nurture that immune system, because that's ultimately what it comes down to. You know, if you line 10 people up and they all get monkeypox, who's going to do better or who's going to do worse? Same thing with COVID. COVID, we talked about people that were diabetic, high blood pressure, overweight and obese, all these underlying chronic health conditions. What are some other things that we can do? We talked about sleep, we talked about that stress response. What are some other things that we can do to support that immune system?
Well, and that's just where it really comes down to decreasing your intake of inflammatory foods. I mean, I cannot believe how many times I still hear a doctor of any background say, you know, diet doesn't affect your health. It is just genuinely mind-blowing to me. So, I mean, there's been books and studies, but we still just, for some reason. So the high inflammatory foods, know what's going on in your blood chemistry. I really would recommend that. I mean, whether you get just a panel through us to see what's going on. But what I tell people is, look, if you take a general look at, let's look at most of the research and books, what I call them the big nasty five. And when I tell people the big nasty five, some people hate me because it's all they eat, and then they ask me why they're not feeling well. Big nasty five, actually it's six, because there's a tie for number one.
Carol here.
Call out for sure.
Cut out.
Yeah, cut out. Sugar and alcohol
Yep.
are pretty bad. So the next one are grains. We can get pretty specific with that. Gluten tend to be more inflammatory. If you want, I can come back on in a week or two and do a very in-depth of what gluten is, why it reacts to your immune system, why it's different, why our grains are different
and
than
it's
other
just
grains.
mucus producing in general.
Exactly.
You know, even if you don't have a gluten allergy, gluten is going to cause the body to produce more mucus.
Yep. So sugar and alcohol, I kind of lump grains until we can get more specific with someone and get it healed. It's not everything, and most people can do most rice, quinoa, millets, things like that. But I'll just say grains just to be kind of safe.
But then even being aware of their blood sugar. Because,
exactly.
I mean, how many times do you see somebody eat rice and not spike their blood sugar? Almost.
It's rare.
It's
I
rare.
do have a few patients
There's a
that are
couple
like,
that can do it.
congratulations.
But people are like, ooh, beans and rice, that's, you know, healthy. And you're like, you're hitting 180.
And then the third one is dairy, huge mucus producer, large proteins. If you have anything going digestive issue-wise, it's really notorious for aggravating that immune system because you have large sugary proteins coming in and they're like, whoa, can't handle you. And then corn and soy. And a lot of people are like, oh, I don't eat corn on the cob and, you know, I don't like soy sauce. And I was like, well, if you eat most stuff that's highly processed in a box bag or a can, you're probably going to have some sort of soy corn in it as a filler, as a binder.
Corn syrup,
Yep.
you've got soy in a lot of different things. Most of the fake meat products nowadays.
Oh yeah, soy's
and you know, on top of that, a lot of these foods that you're talking about are some of the most highly used Roundup. Which, you know, that there's a whole nother level to that. We've been posting a little bit on those. You know, that's one of the reasons why we're seeing the sperm count and testosterone count go down in men, is because of this high use of Roundup. There was a study that I saw. They looked at pigs' intestines that were fed a GMO grains and then non-GMO. So the GMO were used Roundup, the non-GMO were not. And the pig intestine that ate the GMO had all these perforations they couldn't even make sausage out of it. It was so damaged. And that's what happens inside of us as well. Unfortunately, Roundup really damages the microbiome.
Yeah, heavily.
Which is that it kills off the good bacteria. Just like if you're spraying your grass or weeds or whatever with Roundup, it is going to kill off all the microbes in that soil as well. And that's why you can't use it with organic soils and things like that. But if you're eating foods or if you're out spraying and you're ingesting that Roundup, you are going to be killing off your microbiome as well.
And then not only that, GMO, genetically modified, one of the things they modify is they modify what the bran layer of a seed even looks like. Instead of being this nice clumpy, what we used to call roughage, because when you look at it kind of under a microscope, it's just like this really junky looking brown snowflake, which is good. It kind of helps brush out. But they changed some plants into have more of what's kind of more of a fusiform shape, which is like an eyelet shape with pointy ends. And so quite literally, you're taking in these tiny little razor blades that have the potential to actually damage your physically damage your cells at a higher rate. And that's where like, hey, we don't use Roundup on our crops anymore because we have a new bran layer that insects, when they ingest it, it kills the insects, so insects don't like it. Well, guess what? It's also cutting up your intestinal.
That's Natalie asked about pea protein as she's a vegetarian. So there's debate on pea protein. So in general, the source matters, and you do have to find, sadly, this is where you have to put on your investigative fingers on the internet, and find that there are some really good pea proteins out there. There really are. I think even some of the supplementation and stuff that we use has some really good ones, but they validate the crops really well and stuff like that. So it's not sprayed. But here's the thing. I don't do great with pea protein.
Yeah,
I've seen
really
a lot of patients that just GI, it just does not digest that great. I would look into even some bone broth. You can make your own bone broth. You can buy it. You can get in powder form. Ancient Nutrition's got some. So bone broth protein, that's going to have some good collagen, some good building blocks for skin, hair, nails, things like that. Anyways, but
and that when you're on the collagen topic too as well, for people that have high anxiety or people that have some pretty like asthma or like a lot of respiratory issues, I will be full disclosure, there is some research showing the powdered collagen doesn't react to those people as well. But if you make your own collagen, your own bone broth, or you can even get it from natural grocers, Whole Foods, they actually sell just bone broth and it's really organic, it's really clean, the liquid form. They respond really well. I've used that with asthmatics and people with lung conditions for years. And it really helps build that collagen form right back up. And for people because some people don't, even a really good powdered collagen, which Ancient Nutrition sells, I think one of the best ones out there. Even if you're like, well, I tried that, it didn't really sit well with me, but I want a good collagen thing. Well, there are ways to either do it yourself. I mean, I have a really simple pamphlet that I wrote on how to do it yourself, or you can now get it on a lot of these more like health-minded stores as well.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we've got to jump. We got patients waiting, but thanks for jumping on, guys. And monkeypox, it's a thing. It's transmitted potentially through intimate contact with animals, and then intimate contact with humans. Large droplets. It does not set up well to be this, oh my gosh, that's why you're not seeing it go from 1 person to 4 person to 500 people to 10,000 people. We're sitting at 4 still in the US?
That's what the article said. It was last week, so
yesterday or
it
whatever.
can be more of it.
But still, it's not going to explode like this. And so, that's where they're even saying, in Belgium, 21-day quarantine. So, it just don't freak out. Keep your immune system strong. Do the things that you've been doing throughout COVID, throughout all these times, and you're going to do just fine. If somebody does have, and it's pretty obvious if you've got this pox breakout, you can Google it and see what it looks like. So
scabs.
Yeah. So just keep your immune system as strong as possible. Do the things that you need to do. Supplements are great, but you need to move your feet to keep your immune system. So thanks for jumping on, guys. We'll see you soon, and let us know if you have any other questions.